It's still the best offense that I played in out of all my career. I played for 7 different teams in the NFL. None of the offenses were as good as I played at BYU.
Hi, my name's Mike Lacey, and I'm here with one of my favorite Cougars of all time, and Bear, and Packer, and Eagle, Mr. Jim McMahon. Jim, thank you for showing up with us.
Hey, no problem, Mike. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you. One of my favorite memories at BYU was us playing softball together, of all things. Do you remember those teams we had?
Yeah, in the summertime, we got to play a little softball, and that I always enjoyed that. Well, baseball was always my first love, so anytime I can get out and swing the bat, catch a few balls, it's always good.
And I got to admit that your arm and your bat were pretty dang strong, and we had a fun team. We had some of the basketball players, some of the football players, and we were known for hitting a few HRs.
No doubt about it. It's much funner to jog around the bases and have to sprint.
Oh, Jim, the days. All right, I'm going to lead this off with a confession, because here's Mike Lacey, and I chose between Stanford, Cal, UCLA, and BYU. My family had joined the church when I was young. And so BYU was one of those places that I didn't know much about, but I wanted to go to. So I was one of those guys, you ran into me and other people like me, where I was kind of fundamentalist in my beliefs. So be patient with me as I tell you this story, because I ended up going on a mission, okay? And my mission was to Central America, and people in Central America, it was a great experience as a kid. But I come back to BYU, and now, my guys that were in my class, and I was in the Mark Wilson class, they're 3 years ahead of me, and they're upperclassmen, and I'm sitting there in training table. Training table, for those unaware, is where we ate our meals that keep us to be football players. And I see this guy strutting across the room with sunglasses now, of all things, in January in Utah. And he was strutting. He looked like he was as confident as anybody. And I forget who I said it to, but I said, "Who is that?" "Oh, that's Jimbo. Jim McMahon." I said, "I don't know who he is, but I'm going to knock his head off," because I was playing linebacker back then. And Jim, my confession is that you were or are one of my favorite teammates of all time, and I appreciate your example. But one thing I noticed was you were always willing to sacrifice for the team. You cared about your teammates. You always brought the best out of your teammates. Why is there this juxtaposition of Jim McMahon, the rebel bad boy, and Jim McMahon, the guy who all his teammates love? What you explain to me, is this by design, or is it just your nature?
Well, it didn't matter to me other than my teammates anyway. The people on the outside, the fans, they don't know what we go through, especially there. I was not the regular BYU student, obviously. BYU wasn't my first choice. I wanted to go to Vegas. I wanted to play baseball. That was my thing. And my dad just said, "Nope, you're not going to Vegas." So that's how I got to BYU. But I've always been a team guy. I know I can't do my job without, especially those 5 guys up front. And they were always my friends. Tried to be close to those guys because they can make life miserable. One little slip here and let a guy hit you in the face. But I never had any problem with my linemen. I didn't have any of those types of issues. because I think they understood that I realized what they were going through. It wasn't just me out there. I mean, hell, I had a whole bunch of teammates that did. If they didn't do their jobs, we weren't going to win.
I don't know if you'll appreciate this, but one of my roommates was Scott Runya. Do you remember the point guard at BYU?
Yeah, basketball player. Yeah.
Yeah. And Scott made what I thought was a really perceptive observation. He said, Mike, the two athletes here at BYU, because we had some phenomenal teams. And I'm for one, I'm so grateful that you chose to come to BYU. But he said, Mike, the two personalities and characters that are more alike with each other are Danny Ainge and Jim McMahon. Is that a first time you've ever heard that?
Well, Danny likes to win too. I mean, it's not if you're going to play anything or be successful in anything, you got to love it and you got to want to win. I mean, it's no fun to lose. And I know Danny has the same attitude. He wants to win it no matter what you're playing. You want to win. Same. Michael Jordan was the same way, whether he's playing cards or
golf
or basketball. You guys want to win, and that's who I want to be around. People that like to win.
But the one cool thing that I like, and also, or one of the cool things about you and Danny, was not only did you want to win, but like you said, you wanted to bring your whole team along. You know what I mean? And so the lowest guy on the team, or we call it the least common denominator, you were the guy that was bringing him up too, because you realized that your team was based on how everybody performed. I don't know. So,
hey, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So you gotta have everybody involved. Even the kickers.
Sometimes, especially the kickers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you remember? I don't know. Maybe this was. You might remember this, but we were having practice in the fall. Well, not fall. It was August, and we were out there slaving away, sweating, working, hitting each other, getting ready for the season. And I looked over to the side. You may or may not remember this, but the kickers were doing some pyramid with the cheerleaders. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
It was weird. I was like,
I'm sure I said something.
Those guys are on the team, right? But you continued that and even expanded it, because at the Bears, I was so excited to see you doing all what you did. But one of the things that demonstrated the love that you had for your teammates and that they had for them was what you did with your offensive linemen after a good play. Do you want to describe that?
Oh, the headbutting thing?
The headbutting thing. Because trust me, I had little children, right? And my little children wanted to do the Jim McMahon headbutt with everybody they ran into because they were proud of you. So yeah, the headbutting thing. How did that start?
Well, it started. My roommate happened to be Kurt Becker from Michigan. He was an offensive guard, and one night before a game, we're sitting there giving each other grief, and he said, "Well, tomorrow when we score, I'm going to knock you out." And so we scored, and he come running at me, and he hit me with his head, and it started from there. It was just him and I just trying to knock each other out after we scored. But it just ended up, I did it every time we scored to most of the linemen.
You did. And you know what, Jim? You could tell they loved you, and you loved them.
Well, like I said, they were always my closest people on the team. I couldn't do my job without those guys. And so I was always had a lot of respect for those guys.
I might jump around a little bit here, but having played, and trust me, we had some unbelievably great quarterbacks at BYU. You were one of a group of guys that and I don't know if that was just you guys individually or combined with Doug Scovil and Ted Tollner and all those guys, but what do you attribute the great, you were maybe the highlight of that quarterback factory. What do you attribute that to?
Our scheme. At the time, we were doing what they're doing nowadays, back in the 70s, throwing the ball around the field. And, our system is still the best offense that I played in out of all my career. I played for 7 different teams in the NFL. None of the offenses were as good as I played at BYU. And everybody talks about how it's a complicated scheme. No, it's not a complicated scheme. The defense can always send one more than you can block. And as a quarterback, if you can figure out who that is, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Because if the guy that you can't block is 8 yards deep, you don't care. If he's up on line of scrimmage, inside of 5 yards, then that should be a red flag. So I think that our coaching and our scheme is what can make you a successful quarterback at BYU. If you got half a brain, I mean, it's like I said, it's not that difficult to figure out what they're trying to do to you on defense. And we really, back then, we didn't really care what they did because we knew we were going to do what we were going to do. And it doesn't matter what the defense does, they're going to be wrong. And it was a lot of fun to be in that system.
I tell you what, it was fun to be in that system for every single one of us on that field because you may remember Doug Scovil saying, "We want to light up that scoreboard."
Oh yeah, yeah. That was his favorite saying on Friday night or Saturday morning.
I want
to see it looking like Las Vegas, lights flashing.
So, all right, I'll ask you there because I'm grateful that you came and played and were a teammate of ours. My father was a professional baseball player, and I played baseball, and I was a decent center fielder and pitcher. But I wanted to play football personally. You wanted to play baseball, and Las Vegas was your first passion. I know that your dad kind of not convinced you, but kind of forced you to come to BYU. Do you have any regrets? Do you wish you'd gone to UNLV?
Well, I think my body would feel a hell of a lot better than it does right now had I stuck to baseball. I've had 26 surgeries.
Oh man,
I've got arthritis. I've got, my joints are bad, but it worked out. I mean, it's I had a fun career and got to play 15 more years after I left college. So I learned a lot, not only about football but about life at BYU. So it's everything worked out for the best.
And we had a unique system. But I like to tell people who don't know Jim McMahon the way I know him that Jim McMahon was good for BYU, and I hope BYU was good for Jim McMahon. I know that the Doug Scovil system and the way you played quarterback was just amazing.
Well, like I said, it was the best offense I'd ever been in. Doug Scovil was the most brilliant offensive mind I've ever been around. I mean, that guy he'd sit. I remember him sitting at his office just looking out at the mountains. And he'd say, "Can you see those guys out there?" And I'm looking around thinking, he's looking at elk or deer. He says, No, they're wide open. Everybody's wide open. He just loved to throw that football around. I remember we'd get down to, we'd have a long pass play down to inside the 5, and Lavelle would get excited. Say, "Hey, we're going to run it in now." And Doug would go, "Hell no, we're going to throw it in. We got it down here throwing. We're going to throw it in from here." So I love that about him. And, he was on my butt a lot when I was a freshman because I was a punter back then. And as a second or third team quarterback at BYU, you don't get a lot of reps. First guy gets all the reps. So I was never involved in the 7-on-7 or stuff like that. And then one day he decides to put me in. He goes, "All right, you're in." And I hadn't thrown a ball in probably about an hour. And I'd say, "Coach, I haven't thrown a ball in an hour." And he says, "Well, you're not ready. Okay, next guy's in." So the next day I would be throwing the ball while I was watching 7-on-7. And he'd look at me and goes, "What are you doing? You're never going to learn anything if you're not over here watching." So I couldn't make him happy no matter what I did. So I was a little bit frustrated. And then he left my sophomore year. We had the guy, remember that? Oh yeah, I didn't want to say his name.
Oh, sorry.
But he came my sophomore year and just kind of screwed everything up. He'd tell Mark Wilson one thing, he'd come and tell me another thing, and Mark and I would just sit and laugh and just exchanged the conversations that we both had with him. And then Doug came back in 1979, and I remember his first words was, "I'm going to get Mark Wilson back to where he was." So I didn't think I had a shot at playing again with Doug there, but luckily I stuck around because I almost left after that year, after my sophomore year. And Dr. Brent Prattley, he's the guy that kind of talked me into staying. So kudos to Doc Pratley for keeping me around there for another 2 years.
Dr. Pratley worked on my knee, when I tore the ACL. We all know Dr. Brent Pratley. He was a larger than life character too.
Yeah, he was. He was, like I said, if it wasn't for him, I would have been gone after my sophomore year.
Wow.
But he kind of took me under his wing and, got me to stay. So things worked out after that.
All right, Jim, back when we were lighting up the scoreboard like a pinball machine, there are two things I'd like to talk about. One, you had eyes in the back of your head, brother, because and you knew it looked to me like you knew where that third option or fourth option was in the sequence of the play, and you'd already be throwing the ball before you looked down that receiver. Tell me, is there a special gimmick, or you just know mechanically that wide receiver on the left, you've already looked down and your back is covered by the linebacker, the tight end is covered by the strong safety, this, the wide receiver is covered. So you're going to your fourth option here at the left wide receiver, who's the guy that's wide open, looking at the mountains with Doug Scovil. But you were throwing the ball before you even saw him. How did you do that?
Well, again, that was the scheme, our scheme. I knew where. That's what I loved about our guys. Everybody was always in the right position. I think that was the coaching aspect. I don't know if you remember, our offensive line coach used to give the receivers and running backs the blocking assignments, a little test before the game, and then the receivers and backs had to draw up the linemen's blocking assignments. So everybody was on the same page. Everybody knew what everybody's going to be. And as a quarterback, if you don't know where you're going with the ball before you get it, you're already behind the eight ball. I mean, you should have a good idea just by the way they line up who you're going to throw the ball to. And as you get the ball in your first step or two, you confirm what you thought you saw. And if they try to, a lot of teams try to fool us. We saw everything from 11 guys on the line of scrimmage to 11 guys dropping off. I mean, that's how crazy people tried to defend us because they didn't know what was coming. And like I said, they were never going to be right. If the quarterback's, like I said, has half a brain, he can see what's going on in front of him. He should know where the ball is going to be going. And he just got to trust that his guys are going to be there. And I always trusted my guys.
And your guys trusted you. I mean, for a little while, I was a tight end fullback, and I remember catching the ball, and you delivered it right where I needed it. We stone hands fullbacks and linebackers and tight ends can sometimes catch the ball when it's delivered in the right way too.
Well, that's the key. Get it to where they can catch it.
Get it to where they can catch it. But in the NFL, you're playing with Mike Ditka, and you've got Walter Payton and everything running back behind you. And as I recall, now correct my terminology might be wrong here, but for a while it looked like you were running the veer option. Were you kind of running a veer or some semblance of that with the Bears?
No, it wasn't a veer, but it was a lot of running.
Yeah.
I remember at BYU, our playbook, we had that many passes and that many runs. At Chicago, it was that many runs and that many passes.
That many passes.
I knew we were going to, we could have been a lot more productive, I think, offensively, had we got to throw the ball more. We had a lot of great skilled people as well. We had speed with Willie Gault. We had Dennis McKinnon, my other receiver, always in the right spot. Had a good tight end with Emery Moorhead and Tim Reitman. Of course, we had backs, Walter. We had a kid by the name of Dennis Gentry, who was probably one of the most talented guys we had, but he didn't get on the field much. And I think we could have used him a lot. Could have thrown the ball more to Walter. Mike and I used to yell at each other all the time about, we're going to run the ball. I go, why can't I throw it to him? Why run it through the line when he could just get one-on-one with the linebacker and make it easy? I said, I can throw the ball 7 yards. You got to give me that much credit. Because I just don't think he understood what I was capable of doing. I think he just thought I did things to piss him off. And I was trying to win ball games. And some of the things he would call at certain times, I'm like, that ain't going to get it done. at BYU, we could have called any play we had from the line of scrimmage. And that's what I wanted to do, throughout my career. Because like I said, to me, it was not that hard to figure out what they're trying to do to us. And if we can call every play from the line and have everybody on the same page, I mean, you could be very successful doing that.
Mark Wilson shared with me kind of the same thing you just said. He said, Mike, our offense we ran at BYU was way better for him. I forget if he said better or more advanced than the playbook at the Raiders that he was playing with. And our audible system, he said it was a joke how we audibled at it. And here they are in the NFL. And I remember, you would call the play, Brown 34 left on 3, and then if you said 3 to lead it off, we all knew, hey, all right, now comes an audible, because all the other time you'd say 1 or 3 or 2 but when it was
if you repeat it in snap count, then that should alert everybody you're changing the play.
Now Jim is changing the play, and the other team doesn't know that. And we would audible into the right play given the defense that was in front of us. At the Raiders, he said they just didn't do that. And Jim, I watched your career at the Bears and Mark's at the Raiders and Steve Young later at the 49ers and everything. And the 49ers had a very similar offense. So you tell me here, I asked you about a regret, and baseball, would have been better on your body. But heck, someone could have cleated you on the field or something. I don't know. But do you have any regrets? I mean, the Bears love you. The people in Chicago have you up on a pedestal. What if you'd played in a system like the Raiders or the 49ers or, a more pass-oriented offense? What would have happened?
Well, my stats would have been better. Yeah, it would have been nice to play in an up like Frisco. Well, at the end of my career, I was with Green Bay and Mike Holmgren, who was another BYU coach after I left. But that was probably the best system that I played in the 15 years in the pros. It was pretty similar. We had a lot of you overload a zone, or you get a lot of different people in the zone. If you got man to man, it's really easy. But that was probably the best system that I played with in the pros was in Green Bay.
I got a couple personal questions here. Vai Sikahema, and we can edit this if you want, but I love Vi. What a personality! And you guys were teammates. He shared some stories, one of which we didn't share. Later, he asked me to, let's not share that one, but he did reveal, and it was a good one. It was positive. It was nothing but good. It was about an SMU teammate on the Eagles, and he's a new guy in the locker room, and some guy was yelling, "Hey, McMahon, you guys cheated, to win that SMU bowl game." And you said, "We'll see after practice," or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think it was Wes Hopkins. He was a safety for the Eagles, and he played safety at SMU as well.
And you yelled that, "Hey, we'll prove who cheated or not, or we'll show you that," and that you and Vi, through a little bit of subterfuge, were able to complete another Hail Mary pass against him.
I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I do remember some of that. Yeah.
But the other one that's heartwarming to me, you can tell me to shut up if you want me to, but he said there was a day that you guys, were flying into Washington and playing, and you said, "Hey, Vi, what are you doing? You're in your hotel room. The game's next day or something." Says, "Vi, what are you doing in the next hour?" And Vi said nothing. And said, "Okay, meet me down here in the lobby." Do you remember that?
I think we went over to see.
You did. And all I'm going to say is that moment was in a tough spot. And you and Vi, went to him and as a past teammate, kind of showed your love and friendship. And Vi he showed or told me that you were actually sponsoring him or helping him in the setup that he was in.
Yeah, I tried to bail him out a little bit. He was struggling financially, and he was having some problems personally, and just wanted to help him out. He was my best man at my wedding back in what was that, 82, and he was my teammate, and I always enjoyed him, and he was in a tough spot. Just tried to help him out as best I could.
So anyway, again, this gets personal. So you tell me to shut up, but no, I think it's fun that Vi calls you Bishop. Is that true?
He's still working on me everywhere I go.
Well, what I'm saying, and what he brings to light here is, man, nobody could be a better bishop, because if anybody's done anything, Jim McMahon's already done it twice. But
yeah, he told me they couldn't lie to me if they were whatever they do.
Whatever they do,
It's like a confession for Catholics, right?
I know, exactly. Mea culpa. But Jim, what I noticed about you, and what I would, say to my dying day is Jim might have a little bit of a rebel personality, or at least persona. But Jim is one of the best teammates ever and loves people.
Well, I like to have a good time, and I used to hear a lot that at BYU, if we had somehow lost a game, we didn't lose many when I was there, but I would hear the excuse, "Oh well, it wasn't meant to be." The good Lord didn't want us to win today, and I'd always say, "Oh, that's both that's BS."
I know what you're saying.
That's BS. The Lord likes winners. I mean, he wanted us to win that game. And so, I've tried to instill that. I said, it's not always in the Lord's hands. I said, sometimes you got to do your job too.
Well, here you're starting to sound like Bishop. And I'm teasing you.
Yeah, I know I'm far from a bishop.
You'd be surprised.
I married a good Mormon girl. Her dad was a state president. We were married for 28 years, had 4 great kids, and now we have 7 grandkids, and we're still good friends. And so it's all worked out pretty good.
And Vi told me that you would drive your kids to seminary.
I don't know if they went to seminary, but I would show up at the, you guys go to church for like 3 or 4 hours every Sunday, right?
That's changed.
I had a tough time with that 40-minute mass. But, I thought what was great about some of the things in the church, they make the kids speak at an early age, get up in front of people and have to give a little talk. And so when my kids had their talks, I'd show up for the 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was. And I'd say, all right, see you guys at home. And then I'd see them at home later. But yeah, they were all raised LDS, and they're all doing well. So I can't complain.
Jim, I was at your wedding. You invited us, and Diana and Nancy were good friends. They sat together at those softball games, my wife, Diana. And I still love that picture that we took of you when you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that wonderful coat of many colors that you were wearing.
Yeah, I figured that would leave an impression.
It left a great impression. Jim, Patty Edwards said some nice things about you that I wanted to share. First of all, she said you have a photographic memory. Tell me about that. Why does Patty think you have a photographic memory?
She should see me now. I can't remember a damn thing, but
that's our age.
I can remember stuff that happened, 30, 40 years ago, but yesterday, it's kind of a blur. Now, I don't know why I've heard that a lot. LaBelle used to say that, we're watching all this film and stuff. I hated watching film because, the film you're looking at is taken from the top of the stadium. And it's not the same look that I get when you get up. I'm 6'1". I wasn't real tall, so I couldn't see over the linemen. I just had to know where people were going to be, how they lined up. They line up in a certain way. It's not what they're going to do; it's what they can't do from that formation. So it's a process of elimination. If you can, and you got to process that within, a few seconds when you get to the line of scrimmage. And I never had a problem with that. I don't know why. I don't know if it's photographic or what, but I understood if they lined up here, they couldn't play this defense. or that they line up here, they can only play this defense. And so it wasn't, to me, it wasn't never really that hard.
And we did light up the scoreboard. We had very few losses. The losses we had were frequently just flukes for the other team. In fact, that SMU game though, that will go down in history. And I remember I was on the sideline right behind Lavelle and Doug Scovil, and there was a critical time in the game when it was 4th and 10 near midfield, and we were sending the punt team out, and you would not leave the field. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was, it's late in the ball game. Had we punted there, we had no shot.
No.
And, so I told the offense to get in the huddle, and they go, "Hey, the punt team's coming out." I said, "Well, we ain't kicking the damn ball." And so, Lavelle actually had to burn a timeout because we wouldn't come over there. And when I walked off, I probably said a few things. I remember saying, "What are you guys quitting?" I said, "We kicked now. We got no shot."
That's right.
And I remember him and Doug looking at each other like, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "I got this." I said, "I'm not going down punting.
Jim,
if we're gonna lose, we're gonna go for it."
Jim, so, go ahead, keep going. We're gonna go for it.
Yeah. So I just called a play. I said, "I'll call it from the line of scrimmage." Gave myself an even offensive set, and for some reason they weren't guarding Clay Brown, the best tight end in the country at the time, and they had nobody over him but a linebacker. So I can throw it 3 yards and let him take it the rest, and that's what happened. We got the first down, went down and scored. Kicked an onside kick, got it, went down and scored again. Tried another onside kick we didn't get, but and the defense was having a tough time all night stopping Dickerson and James. And when we needed it, they stopped him. Every time I see Eric Dickerson to this day, he said, "Oh, you guys cheated us." I said, "Well, all you needed was 10 yards. Yeah, I said, "You guys both had around 200 yards rushing, and you couldn't get those last 10 yards. I said, "The game's over if you get the first down." And, we stopped them, and, Bill Shefflin blocked the punt, and then, the rest is history. So, yeah, it worked out pretty well. It was an exciting 3 minutes, that's for sure. The rest of the game pretty much sucked, but the last 3 minutes were pretty good.
Those last 3 minutes, I still get chills. My wife and I even the next morning, we were driving off for Christmas, and they replayed those last 3 minutes on the radio, believe it or not. And I still was cheering, the next day. But let me share my perspective as a teammate, because I'm sitting there getting ready to run out as a punt team. And I'm behind Doug and Coach Lavelle Edwards, Doug Scovil and Lavelle Edwards. And when you said, "What, are you giving up the game?" They looked at each other and kind of shrugged like, "Well, okay." And we did. We had to burn a timeout, which was critical in that game, right?
Oh, yeah.
But all of a sudden, as a team, you were the guy who helped us all, let the ice break, because we were a better team than what we had been playing like. I think we were tight or something. But all of a sudden, the ice broke, and, yeah, a lot of things had to fall into place. But what a memorable game that'll always be.
Yep, people still bring it up. They talk about it, and I say, yeah, the game, it wasn't much of a game, but that last 3 minutes was pretty good. Yeah, I struggled offensively. I didn't play well in the first half. That's why we were down so much. And when I see Vi, I said, "Vi, you were the spark plug for that victory." I said, you ran that kickoff or the punt back with less than a minute to go in the first half to give us some life. And I saw this kid was a freshman, and he wasn't giving up. So I certainly wasn't going to do that either.
Do you remember it was a bounding ball? I mean, let alone not only just a regular punt return, but the ball was bouncing around. That's the most dangerous ball to go after. But Vi, like you said, showed huge courage for a freshman. He told me, "What did I have to lose?"
Yeah. Yeah, but it was that was the spark that I needed. Just somebody else is out there fighting, not giving up. And so, that was my attitude going into the second half. Just don't give up. Just keep fighting, and somehow we'll win it.
I love that.
I didn't think it was going to be in that fashion, but I'm glad we were finally able to win a game for LaBelle in the bowl game.
In a bowl game. That's right. Because the year before, we gave a game away in similar fashion, because we dominated, but Indiana beat us, So I didn't know about your situation when Mark came back and, you considered even leaving. But all I do remember, maybe I'm making this up, but when I caught that ball against Texas A&M at the end of the game, I think the first person that came to congratulate me was my teammate, Jim McMahon.
I might have been.
They didn't enforce the sidelines back then the way they do now.
Yeah, that was that was going to be our biggest game of the year. It was that Texas A&M game, So I didn't want to, LaBelle was thinking about redshirting me that year.
Which
and Mark
did.
Yeah, and Mark had that emergency appendectomy just before the Texas A&M game, so I had to get ready to play. I was academically ineligible at the time because I figured something's going to happen here. They're going to stick me in a game or two, and I'm going to lose a whole year of eligibility. So I made sure I wasn't even eligible. And then when Mark had his appendectomy, LaBelle goes, "Oh, you got to get ready to play." So I had to sit in his office every day after practice and get caught up in my schoolwork in order to be eligible. And I ended up doing it, but then I think I dressed one or two more games, and he said, "All right, now you're going to be redshirted." So that's how that worked out.
Jim, I want to golf with you soon. So coming down to Arizona, I'll connect, but and you have to give me strokes. I know how good you are, even with that bad ankle.
Yeah, I'm not shot a smooth 84 yesterday. It was awful.
Sometimes I'm happy with an 84. In fact, most of the time.
Well, where I drive it, you shouldn't shoot 84. I've always been a good driver of the golf ball, but I can't. Short irons are not my forte. Never have been. It's very frustrating to be hitting balls from the middle of the fairway and you can't hit a green from 100 yards. That sucks. But it's been 40 years like that. One of these days, I'll maybe learn to hit a wedge.
Maybe that's more like your film room work that you do, because there's a lot of work to get in those pitching wedges, sand wedges working right.
Yeah, it's always been tough for me. And everybody says, "Oh, that's the easiest part of the game." Well, not for me. It's not. Most people, it's hitting the ball off the tee, getting some length, and I don't have any problem with that. It's just hitting those little greens with short wedges just drives me insane. And then if I do finally hit one, I'll end up 3-putting it.
Oh, gee.
So yeah, my short game has always been my nemesis, but I just love being out there, being in the grass, being in the sun. It's awesome.
It's good for us. And Jim, I'm going to tease you here at the end. But and maybe this is unfair because literally you were an example to me and my family and to a whole country with the Bears and your Super Bowl shuffle and everything. But those headbutts, some people said, well, I guess Jim took too many headbutts from his teammates when you were going through that CTE issue.
It probably didn't help.
It probably didn't help. But I understand our conversation at Danny Plater's funeral, Pluto, our beloved teammate, you said that you'd been overcoming that through some therapy or something. I mean, and we can edit this out if it isn't appropriate, but I'm glad that you're doing so well. And do you want to share anything about that?
Well, I go see my doctor in New York about every 5 to 6 months now. It used to be every 2 to 3 months. There's a problem in my neck and in my head that the spinal fluid it has a tough time flowing properly, and when it starts to back up into my brain, I start getting really bad headaches, and that's when I know it's time to go see the doctor. And he does a little adjustment. It's not a manual thing; it's a machine. It literally takes me longer to lay down on this table, get in the right position, and it looks like a drill bit behind my ear.
Wow.
And all I hear is a snap. And what it does is sends a pulse through my neck and moves the bones out of the way so the spinal fluid can flow properly. And he told me 12 years ago when he first saw me. He goes, the longer I can keep this in alignment, the longer it'll stay. And like I said, the first couple of years, it was every 2 to 3 months I had to go see him, and now it's 5 to 6 months. So things are getting better, but I still have to deal with it. If I sleep wrong, if I bump my head, as soon as I start getting headaches, I know there's something out of whack. So I go see him. So at least I understand what's happening to me. I've had I think 3 teammates so far that have taken their own lives because they didn't understand what was going on. And when your brain starts messing with you, you don't know what to do.
It's a tough deal.
So at least I understand what's happening with me, and I've tried to explain to all my former teammates that are struggling to go see this guy. He's just there to help. He just wants people out of pain, and I originally told this to Roger Goodell when I first met this doctor, and I saw Roger Goodell over at the Pro Bowl. I had a bunch of veterans over there, and I said, "Look, this guy should be talking to every player and every owner in the league about head trauma and this and that." And he says, "Well, who is this guy?" And as soon as I mentioned, he's a chiropractor by trade.
Oh my!
But he studied the brain for the last 30 some years. He speaks all over the world about brain trauma. And Goodell says, "Oh no, I just gave $100 million to Harvard to do this study." I said, "Yeah, the study that this guy's been doing for 30 years." So he kind of blew him off, and now this guy's actually doing studies for the NFL. He finally realized this guy knows what he's doing, and so he's now working for the NFL doing these studies about. They're very close to being able to diagnose CTE without being dead.
Really?
Yeah, they're very close to that. So hopefully they'll get that straightened out, and the people that are really suffering can get some help.
I love that. And here you go, helping your teammates, ex-teammates, and people in your profession, through your efforts. Thank you, Jim.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. That's what we're here for.
No, I love it. I mean, we could talk about institutions and $100 million going to Harvard for something that maybe someone's already done. It reminded me of your little headbands with first Pluto and then P. Roselle. Your history, Jim, is full of enjoyment, pleasure, some crazy things, some exciting things, some unbelievable achievement. Do you have anything to share with this Cougar Nation and beyond that with Chicago fans? What would be your parting shot at us today before we end?
Hey, live your life, enjoy your life. I mean, we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. So just enjoy what you're doing. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, do something else. I like to have fun. I like to laugh. I like to just hang out with the boys and just tell stories. I mean, that's what you miss when you get done playing. It's not really the games and the stadiums. It's being around your teammates is what you miss, and that's certainly what I've missed over the years. And I get to see a lot of them. I travel a lot. Still go back to Chicago a few times a year, see my guys. Got a lot of guys, retired people out here in Arizona. So I get to see a lot of different retired athletes here, and we're just trying to get through these latter years, kid.
And you know what? Our medical profession and technology and everything, it's enabling us to do a lot of stuff. Hit a golf ball further. One parting shot I have for you is I was at a wedding, a secular wedding in Virginia, and a lot of people were there, had some time in between events. And I sat down. It was kind of hot. It was in the summertime. And there was a couple there. And I don't know how the conversation got. They were from Chicago. So I asked them if they were Bears fans. Oh, man, are we Bear fans? They love the Bears. And so, I had to say, well, Jim McMahon is a friend, an ex-teammate. And they thought I walked on water at that moment. I mean, seriously, the people in Chicago love Jim McMahon. The people at BYU, the football players especially, and Tom Holmoe, we love Jim McMahon. Thank you for what you've brought to us.
All right. I loved you guys too, man. Like I said, I've always enjoyed my teammates, and Tommy's done a hell of a job there being the AD at BYU, and a lot of great people. I got to play with a lot of great people, and they're doing some really good things now in their lives. So it's always great to catch up with you guys.
Jim, let me connect on that golf course, and thank you for joining us today on Beyond the Game.
Well, no problem. Let me know when you're down here. We'll go hit a few.
Thanks, brother.
Okay, guys. Take care.
Thank you for watching another episode of Beyond the Game. Remember to click here to subscribe and click here to watch our recent videos. Also, please follow us on social media, and remember, go Cougs.